Are you tired of hearing crickets on social media? Wondering where to get seen by the right people? Or frustrated with the growth of your business? Then the Speaker Breakthrough Session is just for you. During this free 20-minute discovery call, I'll help you recognize where you're leaving money and opportunity on the table. You'll walk away with tips and a strategy to leverage speaking opportunities to get positioned as the expert, visible to the right people, and monetize your expertise. Book your call at speakandstandout.com/SBS for Speaker Breakthrough Session. So welcome back to another episode. I have a lovely guest that I've been on her podcast, and she recently wrote and released her first book, which is called Permission to Kick Ass, which is also the name of her podcast. And in this episode, we talk about so much. As a woman who is a creative and never felt like she fit in the right mold that society has for us, and that she always wanted to do things a little bit differently, and her ADHD, she has just had an amazing career path and how she has let her gut really guide her. And we talked about like some of the bad advice that's out there, the assumptions about what you should be doing. And her podcast already for 2024, she already has all of her guests already lined up. Like she literally is putting people on a wait list for 2025. Amazing. So without further ado, let's get on to the show.
You're listening to Be in Demand, the podcast for honest advice, inspiring stories, and ideas for growing your business by leveraging the expert that you are. I'm your host, Laurie-Ann, business mentor, and I'm also a reformed painfully shy girl, red wine lover, and exercise enthusiast. Join me as I share how being positioned as the expert in your industry, even if it's a busy one, will help you stand out and be the one in demand to hire and work with.
All right, Angie, I'm so excited to have you on my podcast now. This is so much fun. And I have got to tell, or maybe I should just let you tell a story. So Angie and I met in person accidentally at an in-person conference just a couple of months ago. And I was probably being a little sassy Boston girl when I walked up to you, but I think I'm going to let you tell the rest of the story.
No, it was kind of hilarious. If anybody's seen the video, you may notice that this little book is sitting behind me. This is my book, Permission to Kick Ass, shameless plug. And what had happened was I had just gotten the print proof back from the printer, and I had brought it to this event because my editor was there, and I wanted her to not only be able to flip through it, see what the final product looked like, but also I had written, shout out to Cindy Childress, I had written her a lovely little acknowledgement in the back, and I wanted her to read it because I just wanted her to. So I had this sitting just on top of my computer and on top of my stuff at a break time. And when I came back from the bathroom, I believe it was, or getting coffee or something, Laurie-Ann is standing by my space and she looks at me and she goes, "How do you know Angie?" And I was like, "I am Angie." And we just started laughing. And this story, I'll try and make it a short version. When I first started my podcast, also called Permission to Kick Ass, I was thrilled. Cool. Finally, a medium that allows my inner tomboy lazy person to shine, because I don't have to be on video and I don't have to do my makeup and I don't have to worry about any of that. I just have to show up and talk, right? So I had 100+ episodes where that was literally the rules of the road. Show up however you want to. The video is just so that you and I can connect personally. I'm not planning on using that anywhere. So Laurie-Ann's first experience with me was probably holed up in some random Airbnb or hotel room during travel with my hair in a messy bun. I wasn't back to doing the red back then, in my sweatpants or something like that, just recording. And so I looked totally different with my hair down and curly and bright red, with my moto jacket that I was wearing.
Recognize me.
I know.
So it was
mutual. Oh my gosh, wait. And you are? I believe that was my response to, and you are? You were like, "Laurie-Ann, I've been on your podcast." I was like, "Oh, crap. Yes, you have. Oh my gosh, this is amazing."
It was hilarious. And what drew me to the book is that is the cover of her podcast. So I've shared that graphic before. So that's what drew me to your seat. And who knows Angie that's here?
I was there.
So congratulations on your book. by the way. That was a life goal of yours before you hit 40, you said. Are we allowed to say that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, good. Before you hit
Yeah.
40, it was like that you were going to publish your book, and you did it. So
Yes.
congratulations.
Thank you. It's fun, like the power of public goals, like random side tangent for anybody listening. I had a personal situation that had happened earlier this year in the springtime, and the fallout from it made me feel some strong feelings. We'll just say that. And so one day, in a moment of, I don't know, rage, spite, whatever, I realized we're like 6 months out from my birthday, June 1st. And I just hopped on LinkedIn out of pure instinct and went, you know what? It's exactly 6 months from my 40th birthday. And by my 40th birthday, I will have been on 40 podcasts or stages or publications. I will finish this freaking book that I've been working on for 5 years because I started working on it in 2018. And then I think I offered like 40% off coaching or something like that. And I achieved all of those things.
Good for you.
Public accountability. Who knew? It's like self-peer pressure.
It's amazing how well that works. I think last year I had a goal to be on, I want to say it was 60 podcasts. And it got to be September. And it was one of those things like, if you don't look at your goals often enough, you will forget about them. Well, guess what? I had done really well at the beginning of the year. Then I forgot to look at them. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, shit, I need to get on more podcasts. So I think I just like shared with people, and it was a post all about not looking at your goals often enough. And so I had a lot of people who just like piped in and said, you can be on my podcast. I can introduce you to somebody. I mean, you're right. The power of sharing your goals. People want to help. People absolutely want to help.
Well, I had like some super early momentum. Sorry, this is just going to be like side tangent show today, if that's okay with you.
That's okay.
I had some super early momentum. I think I booked like 20 things, no problem. There goes Stella. And I think roundabout August, I went, oh, I got to get serious because it has slowed down seriously. And I don't know who else to ask. I've pretty much tapped out my network, or at least to me, because I don't like to, who likes to feel like a bother? I was probably playing it a little bit safe. But I did reach out to a few people and I said, I'm slowing down on the bookings and I don't know what to do. And I'm a little bit frustrated and a little bit nervous I'm not going to hit my goal. And so a few people independently of each other recommended this service called Podmatch. And I joined it on a Friday. I distinctly remember this. I filled out my host profile and my guest profile on Friday. And on, I think it was just a couple days later, Monday, I had to shut it down on the host side because I got inundated with applicants and I could not keep up with the volume of requests to be on the show. And I got some good guests out of that. And then I learned a lot about people really aren't paying attention or trying very hard when they're pitching to be on shows. I imagine you've dealt with that, helping people to get ready for stages. Like if they're not doing enough work on their pitch, then they're probably struggling to get on stages. And that turned into me saying something online in which you and I were talking about this before. The founder of Podmatch saw my post about I had to shut this down because I got inundated. Then he asked to share that with the team. Then he invited me to speak for Pod Talks. And so like all of these things happen when you just put yourself out there. That's the point of that ramble.
Thank you. But thank you for sharing. So we're going to I want to talk a lot about your book because I believe that a book is another stage. It's another form of visibility. It's another form of authority. And writing a book, because I've written a couple and I've got several workbooks that kind of like go hand in hand with what I used to do, which was leadership and emotional intelligence and corporate engagement. But it's not a small endeavor. And you're putting yourself out there.
Like I said, 5 years in the making of overthinking, of agonizing, of realizing that freaking third section is just not working, but I don't know how to fix it. Like it hits different when you're putting it down in print. We were talking about that before recording too, because there was another speaker in the audience at this Limitless event that we were at who said the same thing. Like, give me a microphone, put me on stage. I will tell the stories. I will hold the audience captive. Like, we're going to do this. We're performers, right? Tell me to put it in a book and I'm going to be like, is this the right story? I don't know. Well, but if I did it. And I speculated before we started recording that maybe it's because I can't see the interaction. I can't feed off the energy. I just have to put it there and let you take it and let you take what it will, or take what you will from it. And that is truly frightening for somebody that feeds off the image.
True, but they're just these words.
Mm-hmm.
And depending on how you decorate the words or like create the environment or the emotion, you're right. Like the reader is just going to read them. I mean, it's different because like when we're on stage, we have the power of pausing our voice, slowing down our voice. Like we're actors and actresses on stage as we convey these stories and relive these stories. Whereas like the reader, we don't even know like what they're thinking of also while they're trying to read your book.
Yep.
And I think the other thing is that you hit on, the reader and in the audience will take away the lessons that they need right then and there, whether they're seeing you speak in person right live or they're reading it. Everybody takes what they need away.
Yes. Well, and to go back to something that you said earlier too, like it's such an endeavor. It's not just the choice of stories. It's also the physical act of putting a book out there into the world, which even with the technology that we've got these days is still pretty complicated and has lots and lots of steps. I mean, I had to pull production on the first publisher. I'm self-published, but I had a publisher because my ultimate goal is to be in bookstores. And I don't know if they allow it, but like, wouldn't it be great to see Permission to Kick Ass on the shelf at the airport? Like, get on a plane, permission to kick ass, right? And so I had a self-publisher that when I got the print proof, critical part of the process, there were so many issues. I wrote into them and said, how do we fix these things? There's nothing in the help literature that tells me how we address these print quality issues. And they basically said, deal with it. And I went,
What?
no, I'm asking people to pay $25 for paperback. It's going to be a high quality paperback, one that feels good in their hands, not one that reads like crap. So that was 2 months before my go live date that I had to pull publication from them and go entirely to Amazon, which I did not want to do. And I still don't have print distribution to bookstores. It's such a daunting process to put it out there that now I understand what people say when they're like, putting a book out there is an authority play because not everybody will do it because it's hard.
Yeah, it is hard. It is hard. But you can get into independent bookstores.
Yeah.
I mean,
Absolutely.
obviously by, like going up to them and asking. But I'm going to share a secret. And I've never tried this, but you almost have to get a bunch of your friends to do this, is for them to walk into Amazon and say, I'm looking for the book Permission to Kick Ass by Angie Cole. If enough people keep doing this over and over again, or even by phone, they start to be like, what is this book?
Yeah.
And I got that tip from an author. God, I wish I could remember exactly who that was, but there's a little freebie tip for anybody. I mean, it's a little bit of grassroots, but could work.
Well, I mean, that's exactly how the Chicken Soup for the Soul guys, Jack Canfield, got started. They just took their self-published book of essays around to stores. And I can't remember exactly the number, but he said they must have had thousands and thousands of conversations just to get those books onto the shelves. And now it's an empire. So like sometimes you got to be the one out there pounding the pavement and selling your message, not waiting for people to come to you with offers.
That's so true. It is so true. And I think when it's our art and it's our message, it's like, that's why I'm doing this. I'm doing this because I want to get this message out there. So why did you write Permission to Kick Ass?
Oh, I jokingly, not so jokingly, call it a love letter to a younger me. I am, and hopefully thank you. It's everything I wish I had known about a creative service business. Specifically for me, I was a copywriter, but I think this applies to a lot of creative businesses, graphic design, photography, even cake baking, dancing, things like that. I didn't know what I didn't know about business, and I didn't know what I didn't know about copywriting when I kind of fell into it. And so I just stumbled and fumbled my way forward. And here's the interesting thing. Not a lot of people know this about me because I don't really talk about it publicly. I have a master's degree in business. So like I had an actual business education before going into this, and I still fell onto my face the first time and wiped out pretty hardcore, failed pretty miserably the first time I tried to freelance because I didn't know what I didn't know. And now with time and perspective, it's been over 13 years since that happened, or for over 13 years since I first got started in this industry. I realize we don't have a business education system in most of the world, certainly not in the States. We're all raised to, follow the steps and get the good grades and follow the path that's been set out for us and be good little workers and keep your head down and do all the things. And maybe someday you'll be promoted. So all we have to solve problems is an employee filter, as I like to call it. We don't
100%.
know how to think like a
No.
business. Yeah. And so a lot of this, I think, is about mindset and shifting your thinking. And it still kind of makes me laugh these days because you've probably seen this online where somebody says, here, got this art that I made or this book that I'm selling. And inevitably some Yahoo in the comments is like, well, if you really loved it, you wouldn't charge for it. Or, oh my God, that's so expensive. Why do you charge for that? And I'm like, because they understand business.
Yeah.
And you don't have
you're
to
like,
buy it if you don't like it.
we're not going back to the barter days. Like, what
Yeah.
would you give me then in exchange for this? Because you want it. Like, nothing is ever for free.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing is ever for
Exactly.
free. There's always some sort of exchange of value. But you're right. It's like, why? Oh my God, I remember about like a speaking event and like they don't have the budget. And like a lot of times, like I'm okay with that. Like, can I sell my books in the back? Are you going to give me a testimony? Like there's an exchange of value here. And I actually, and I think I know that I've told this story on one of my previous podcasts where the woman said, she goes, I'm too busy to write you a testimonial. So I said, okay. In a very nice way, I said, I'm too busy to speak for you. And
You're going to pay in either time or money.
Yes.
Use.
And I had to, like I quickly found the president of the organization to let them know why I had stepped down. But it's like, I just like, there's an exchange here. There's always an exchange of some sort of value, testimonials, videos, being able to like have a list of the attendees, always an exchange because people just don't value anything that's for free.
I'm so glad that you mentioned that because I was having a conversation with a coaching client of mine just yesterday about the same thing. He's starting with a new service offering and kind of went to that default, again, that we all have kind of passively absorbed in the society of, well, it's a free thing and it's a thing I've never done before. And I don't know what the value is and I don't know how much time it takes me. So I'm going to offer it for free. And I said, don't you dare. Even if it's a ridiculously low number, get in the habit of charging something for this. And if you're truly uncomfortable with charging for it, then at least make it a value exchange. Like you just said, I am doing this for you so that I can get this. And I am going to do a stellar job just like I would if I were charging full price on this. And in exchange, here's what I need from you. Not asking, not saying if you get around to it, if you feel like it. This is the deal that I'm proposing, that I do this thing for 20% of what I normally would charge. And in exchange, I would like a testimonial, some feedback on what the process was like, and an introduction to 3 people who could use this service.
Perfect.
Yeah.
That's like a beautiful way to like move into a new offer. And then maybe it's like, it's a low cost. And then they add a little bit more and they add a little bit more until they feel like there's this, they feel good with the price.
Yeah. The price and the process. Like if you're uncomfortable with saying it, just that exchange of value. What else is valuable for you? Like you mentioned a list of the attendees or being able to sell a book from the back room or make an offer from the stage. So it's not necessarily just about the fee that I'm being paid. What else can I get out of this? I could do a lot with a list of people. I can do a lot when I can talk to people face to face and make offers to work with me directly. So yeah, value exchange. Learn it, live it, love it.
Yes. Okay. So with your book, what would you say was the hardest chapter to write?
Ooh, that's a good one. There was a section in the back. So it's in kind of 3 sections. And throughout this is sprinkled my own personal story and my own personal experience, and including some juicy ones about how I have embarrassed the crap out of myself. So you don't have to feel alone because it's going to happen. We're going to make mistakes and we're going to be embarrassed. But so preparing, like the getting ready section was easy. The how to charge and how to put yourself out there and how to structure offers section was easy. The hardest part for me was the third part is about growing beyond just trading time for like, how do you start to step out of that? Okay, I've figured out this system for finding people, for working with them, and the money is consistent, but I want to do even more. And I think for 2 years, I was stuck on that back section, could not figure out how to do it. And I finally realized, and this is the funny thing about timing, that I had a story in the beginning of that section that made me sound, if you don't know me, very preachy, sanctimonious, judgy, like totally the opposite of how I wanted to come across. And thankfully, in that time of agonizing over the back third, I had a random conversation with my life coach who, like, that story just replaced the other one so nicely, changed the entire tone of the back third. And I went, see, sometimes you've just got to wait for the solution to come to you instead of trying to force it. I know if I had put the book out with that back third the way it was in the first draft, I would not be happy. And I don't think people would get as much out of it as they have gotten. So I don't know if that answers the question or not, but that was the hard part for me. It took me 2 years to finish the back third.
My first book, one of the sections, it's Rethink Leadership, 4 Lessons to Make You Remarkable. And so one of those lessons is on relationships. That was the hardest chapter for me to write.
Why is that?
And I think it because like back then when I was writing the book, as like I look over at it, relationships was a hard thing for me, building them like career-wise. So for me to like talk about it in the book, like I knew how important it was, but I just didn't have any good role models about how to network and build really good relationships without sounding needy at the same time also, and like, what can I get from you? So that was a hard, because that book was also written in like a chapter per lesson because it's short and sweet to the point. So like I could bounce around from writing it. I don't know how you wrote your book, but it was just like, what do I feel like writing about today? And I would go to that section.
Yeah.
But my second book was more of, they're both stories, but it definitely had a bit like a flow to it with characters. And when I talked about relationships in the second book, it was a little bit easier because I had already done that in the first one, and so that might surprise you because now I just feel like connection is one of my biggest or one of my highest values. I love deep connections with people. I love supporting them, like bringing them on my podcast. Like, how can I basically exploit you in front of my audience so that you get seen and heard by more people? That's basically, but yeah, and I just love having coffee chats and really getting to know people, which is part of the reason why I fell in love with live events as an attendee again.
Same.
Definitely. Say more.
Same.
End.
Like the interesting thing to me that you said, like we're both, I would say probably super connectors at this point and very skilled at nurturing and maintaining relationships. Like perfect, no, but pretty decent to the point where we've got capital stashed in all these relationship banks. And if we mess up, it's easily forgiven because they know our hearts, right? And I'm willing to bet that you, like me, had some moments where you were like, but I want to have a relationship with you, but like, how do I don't. And the answer is I've done a lot of reading and I've made a lot of mistakes. And I've come to realize that nurturing relationships isn't about being in front of people all the time and isn't about an exchange of offer and transactional stuff. I had an inkling one day, you know what? I can't remember what exactly sparked it. I think somebody may have reached out to me. And then I had this aha of, you know what? It's really nice when somebody randomly reaches out to you and said, you popped into my head today. And it made me smile. And like, that's it. That's the entire, it's not let's hop on a call and reconnect or anything like that. So I started practicing that and trying to, which is really hard with an ADHD brain like mine, because in my brain, if I think about you, and especially if I think about you and I've told somebody a story about you, which is almost always going to be positive. I make it a habit not to talk trash about people. I've talked about you to somebody else and told somebody else that Laurie-Ann is freaking awesome. In my mind, I just talked to Laurie-Ann. She's fantastic because I just thought about her. Right. So that's how I can go 5 years without talking to somebody and then pick it up like we just talked yesterday. Because in my mind, we probably did just yesterday. So now reaching out to people when I have that conversation with somebody else and being like, oh, I was at the Limitless experience and Laurie-Ann, there is somebody that you need to meet. We were talking about how awesome you were. You popped into my head. I figured you needed to know. Call me when you got a chance. right? And that's just those little bitty touches that we overthink are what maintain the relationship and keep that dynamic going back and forth. It doesn't always have to be a trade.
It doesn't always have to be traded. And that's so nice that you say that, because you hear that from people who talk about networking and building relationships all the time in those little notes on the regular basis. But you're right. Like, I don't do it either, except like I got to be prompted. So maybe I need to like have a prompt or something. But then I'll be like, well, who do I reach out to today? Like, who haven't I reached out to in a long time? I think I would get way too in my head about it, overthink it. But I might have to try doing that, because I really do love just sending people that random note like, hey, I was just thinking about you.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things that I love about Facebook Messenger is to be able to leave like those voice messages.
Yes. That's really cool. Like, do whatever it takes to make it easy on you, and just make it genuine without wanting something or expecting something in return. Like, for instance, I actually met her through a friend of a friend. She came on the podcast, then we wound up working together, and we have since become friends, even though we technically haven't met in person. And I saw her pop up in my newsfeed while I'm scrolling one day because she was interviewed for an article and her picture was the front of it. And so I took a screenshot of her in the middle of my newsfeed and sent it to her and was like, oh my God, look who just popped up in my newsfeed. It was so good to see you. And like, that's it. And then it was funny because I had an article go live in the Huffington Post recently where the same thing happened to me. Somebody sent me, oh my gosh, you just showed up in my feed. What a great story. It doesn't have to be as hard as we feel like it has to be. Like, you don't have to build up the perfect package or the value add before you have permission to reach out. Just reach out and tell somebody, hey, I thought of you today and smiled. Remember that fun thing? And thankfully, that's the way it works with me and my best friend, like silly memes. I saw this and I thought of you. So that's now my new habit. Saw this and I thought of you.
And just be a human. Humans love just connecting. Like, treat people the way that you want to be treated. You love getting little messages and text messages. Try sending them out. You'll also probably receive more.
Yes.
Yeah. So who's been an influential person in your life? Either family, business, or maybe they don't even know that they've been an influence on you.
Oh, so many good ones. I've talked about it kind of a little before, but not as much as maybe other stories. But my mom, because I think she had an entrepreneurial spirit without even realizing that she had an entrepreneurial spirit. She tried a bunch of the sales clubs and MLM things, but always had an eye on starting her own business and cycled through a lot of those. And we had some tough conversations, especially as I was in my 20s and I was getting to know the business side of things and wanting to start my own, because she worked for these other companies, these clubs, and didn't have a lot of success. And so had kind of a jaded point of view on, this doesn't work. I've tried every angle that you could try. And yet, and I talk about like loving doubters in my book a little bit, because sometimes you have to be your own best cheerleader until you prove it works. Despite the love and the fear that people had for me going out to be a writer, when I made a success of it, that changed how she thought about it. And after that, she went out and started her baking business. And so she's 4 or 5 years into doing that. She works local festivals. She's built a little bit of a cult following around here. And right after I started my podcast, I remember we were on the phone one day talking, and she told me, oh yeah, this lady who's only been in business for about 6 months was asking me all these questions. And I told her, oh, here's what I learned. And here's what I learned. And I said, that's exactly why I keep telling you to come on the podcast, Mom. You have something to share. And she goes, but I don't have enough success yet. And I was like, but look at how you just helped that person despite not having success by just sharing what you know. And so, yeah, I don't know how that answers it, but it's funny how just living your life and doing what you do, even if you feel like you're doing it all wrong, there are people that are watching more closely than you might think, who are being inspired by you and who are taking that and using it to make positive changes in their life. And it's freaking awesome. So just be you.
Maybe we'll have to make a petition to send to Mom to be on your podcast.
Mom, she was episode 2.
Oh, she was. She did come
Yeah.
on here. Oh, I'm going to have to definitely go listen to that one then.
Yeah, I had her on the podcast. I had to drag her a little bit kicking and screaming because she was uncomfortable with the idea of it. But when I launched the podcast, it was the week of her 60th birthday. And then I had her episode air on her birthday. So yeah, symbology, as Willem Dafoe would say.
So with your book, would you write another one or do you see another one in your future?
Oh, yes. I see this being a whole series. And I don't know quite what it looks like yet, but I know that it's Permission to Kick Ass, the brand, not just the book. I can envision Permission to Kick Ass at travel, Permission to Kick Ass at speaking, Permission to Kick Ass at finances. I don't know what it looks like yet, but it feels bigger. Oh, yeah.
Congratulations.
More
I like
books for
that
sure.
because you're thinking like in a brand, you're
Hmm.
thinking bigger. Like, well, how could this one book be a part of something much bigger? When I wrote Rethink Leadership and Rethink Your Leadership, I was like, I'm going to become the Rethink girl. Kind of like
Ooh.
how Ken Blanchard was the 1 minute guy. I was
Hmm.
like, I'll be the Rethink girl. But it kind of just like, and now I'm in this different space, which doesn't mean I can't like rethink speaking, rethink your stages. You're right.
Yes.
You might be inspiring me here now. I love
See, just
that.
living your life. Well, and
Living your life.
I thought I was doing everything all wrong for years because the conventional wisdom in business, especially in creative industries, is to like pick a niche and become a specialist. And for a variety of reasons, but mostly ADHD, could never really do that. And so I've had a lot of fits and starts over the years. Copywriting and marketing was really the only thing that I was able to stay consistent at. And as I kept trying to go out on my own, I would try this angle or try that angle, or I'll be a business coach or I'll be a leadership coach. Like I tried a whole bunch of things. And then I finally went, and here's the power of following your instincts, even when you don't know how it's going to turn out. Somebody invited me to a conference several months ago called the Badass Business Summit. And I had only met this guy once through Podmatch. I was on his podcast and he was like, you should come to this. I'm going to be there. And I was like, sure. Checked in with the gut. Gut says, yes, Badass Business Summit is the place for me. I'm going to go. Shout out to Donnie and the crew. And I showed up there thinking that I was burning down my marketing business and going all in on leadership. And I don't know how that's going to fit with the book since that's about building a business, but screw it. We're going to go all in on leadership. And that Donnie challenged me and said, are you really done with writing? Because like, if you weren't worried about money, what would you be doing? And my old standby joke is I'd be Stephen King, but without the coke. Like I would be prolifically out there writing. And he goes, okay, well then why are you throwing away everything that you've built? And I was like, oh, you suck.
Wow.
And that was like a couple of days of like, you suck, but in a good way. You've challenged me. I don't
Yes.
like this.
Yes.
It's deeply uncomfortable. I had a couple of days of conversations and turned it over in my mind and had to sleep on it. And then on the last day of the conference, business mentor for rule breakers and rebels popped into my head. And I was like, that is it. That is what the struggle has been for 7 years of trying to figure out how do I share all of this that I've acquired, this hard-won knowledge, without going, well, I'm a Facebook ad specialist. Or, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. I want to talk about holistic business and coming at it from a creative perspective of somebody that doesn't fit the molds. Like, I just don't. I've been told I'm too much or not enough all my damn life. And I want to do things my way. And I think we all should be doing things our way. Permission granted.
We should. And I'm so glad that you brought this up because I really do feel that there's so much bad advice. Like, this is how you do it. And then people are like, oh my God, if I don't do it that way, then I'm doing it wrong and I have to do it perfect. Like, it's just like, so I have to do this, but why isn't this working? Why doesn't it feel right? Oh, it doesn't feel right because I'm not there yet. And so they just stay on the struggle bus. Whereas like,
Oh, I've
you just checked, as you said, let's just check in with our gut, with our intuition. It's like, what feels fun? For you, it's writing. So yay to him for giving you that sucky question that
yes.
made you like really think like, would you really want to throw this all away?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You bring up such a great point because there's all of the stuff that we think we should be doing. And no matter how far you've come and how much, hard-won wisdom you've got, you are still susceptible to these traps and this pressure of what you think you should do. Laurie-Ann got to witness it at this summit because the main ask, I don't know if you remember, was I need help promoting my book. This launch is coming up and I'm super stressed out and I feel like I'm behind and the publication issues were just starting. And yeah, I think I was like 3 or 4 weeks out from when I was supposed to release this and I'm stressed out. Like my launch plan is not working. I don't even have links to send people to for pre-order because of how everything fell through. I'm super stressed out. And something clicked for me there and I went, you know what? I laid the groundwork. I've told people for 6 months this is coming. I've got the 40 days of content planned for the 40 lessons in 40 years, and I'm planning on being more visible. I've asked friends for help. I've been talking about it at business events like this. I've done what I can. And this is not the end all be all. Like, I'm not jumping off a cliff by launching this book on my birthday. If I make 2 sales, okay, I guess I made 2 sales. And we can try for a bigger push later when I've actually got all of these production issues and publishing issues solved so that I don't, you know, kill myself from the stress here. And the funny thing happened when I let go of it like that and I said, what will be, will be. Here's what I've got planned. I even remember writing a happy birthday to me email to my list and programming it to send the day of my birthday. And like all of this was by design, guys, because I'm such an anxious person. I wanted the book to launch on my birthday so that I could deliberately be offline, not manically hitting the refresh button to see what I did. Like, did I not make instant bestseller? Oh my God, I suck so hard. So I went offline for most of the weekend with my family and celebrated. And then I started getting text messages from people. Did you see #1 new release in motivation in entrepreneurship? And I was like, wait, what? And I think my book coach at one point said, yeah, I just sent out an email to my list because I want people to get this too. And then she sends me a snapshot of where I'm like #4, #5, #6 in these entrepreneurship categories. And if you go look on the bestseller list, I'm beating out people like Simon Sinek and Todd Herman, who we saw speak at Limitless.
Yes.
And I was like, it was only 24 hours, but I beat those guys. And I did it by letting go and accepting that I did everything that I could and not beating myself up over not being able to do more than I could. So I don't know what the whole point of that story was, but there you go.
Everything always has a point. It's about just like not being attached to the results.
It's about what you think you should do. Because I thought I should have a big, Laura Belgray style launch.
Beautiful launch.
And nothing went according to plan with my launch. And I still got on the bestseller list somehow and top new release. And those are things that are true. They are things that I did, that my book did. And I get to own that in perpetuity. It's fantastic.
And I have to tell you, as somebody who, when I launched my second book, I kept hitting the refresh. And I remember like I was down in Florida and I just went to the pool and I cried.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, it's not working. I put so much work and effort into this. And why aren't these people why aren't people buying my book that told me they would buy? It did make it, I think, like #5 that day. Yeah, not bad. It's certainly not bad. But I mean, that was like over time, but like you just put so much effort into it. And then it's just like, but so kudos to you to like, you just did it and you walked away because you're right.
Mm-hmm.
You did everything that you were supposed to do. And everybody else in the universe has to do their part.
Yeah. I think that was part of the realization for me was that, in that if we go back to when I announced it publicly on LinkedIn, the goal all along was to publish the book by my birthday. The goal was not to become instant bestseller and change everybody's lives overnight. That was never the goal. The goal was to get this book done and out in the world by my birthday. And if one person reads it, I mean, yeah, I'm going to be a little bit bummed, but one person read it and hopefully they got something good out of it. Mission accomplished. And the thought process behind releasing it on my birthday was exactly that. Happy birthday to me. I just hit a milestone. I just released a book. I'm going to go celebrate regardless of what it does.
Yes. Yeah, because it is a major feat to like finishing your book and finally putting it out into the world. So the link to buy Angie's book, Permission to Kick Ass, will be down in the show notes. And if you're watching this on YouTube, it will also be down below. But Angie, why don't you tell people where they can find you, all that juicy stuff?
Fantastic. Well, if you go to permissiontokickass.com, you can sign up for emails. That lets you know where I am in the world, when I'm releasing new podcast episodes, opportunities to work with me, all of that jazz. Sometimes just silly stories because I feel like it. I think the week after my birthday, I shared a picture of me and my siblings on a life-size Hungry Hippos game where you actually, you ride it like a motorcycle. It was hilarious. So I don't know what I'm going to say any more than anybody else does. So being on my email list is quite entertaining if I do say so myself. You can also find me on social media. Most places I'm either at Angie Cole or at Permission to Kick Ass. I've got YouTube. I've got the podcast Permission to Kick Ass. Check it out. Send me a message. I respond to all my own stuff. Would love to hear from you.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you so much for coming on here. sharing your book and the wisdom behind it and the stories behind it. And it was just wonderful running into you, as comical as it was.
Yes.
It was probably one of the highlights of that conference for me.
It was. It's such a good story. And just a further reminder to people that, like, you can still, like, we didn't recognize each other. Come on. And we're still here and friends and laughing, and it's okay. Don't disasterify it. It's okay. Just laugh.
Just laugh. We're all human.
Yep.
We are all just humans living this beautiful experience. Okay, listeners, until next week, go and be in demand.
Thanks for hanging out with me. Be sure to hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode. And join me over in my private Facebook group for more tips, community, and free trainings. You'll find the link in the show notes. You can also help this podcast reach more listeners by leaving a review. And as a thank you, each month I pick one of my reviewers to win a free coaching call with me. So if you haven't done so already, please leave a review and you could be the next winner. Are you tired of hearing crickets on social media? Wondering where to get seen by the right people? Or frustrated with the growth of your business? Then the Speaker Breakthrough Session is just for you. During this free 20-minute discovery call, I'll help you recognize where you're leaving money and opportunity on the table. You'll walk away with tips and a strategy to leverage speaking opportunities to get positioned as the expert, visible to the right people, and monetize your expertise. Book your call at speakandstandout.com/SBS for Speaker Breakthrough Session.